Yeah, much better. I enjoy it.
I think you might be using a slightly different version of the program. But
Well, I joined up to the Streamlabs Prime Premium thing,
yeah, okay.
and that's just made things so much better.
So you know how Zoom has a screen share?
Yeah,
So if you ever need like extended help, it's so easy for us to just connect and then you just screen share whatever you got going on. I can walk you through it. I'm a super nerd. I just installed new fans on my tower today and shit. So okay, so we are at 7:20. If this continues to be a problem, we'll figure something out. But it's definitely Twitch. I don't think it's you. Doing a speed test always helps, but we'll just jump right back in. But I will say, dude, to bridge the video games, a couple things, general things. First of all, at least on the PlayStation end, this is happening exactly how the last generation happened. The difference is PlayStation 4 has had good games all the way throughout, but at the end of PS3, they knocked it out of the park when they seemed like it was a dead console. Ended up selling a ton of consoles with Uncharted and Last of Us. Now with Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, and some of the other games, again they're knocking it out of the park late in its lifespan. And even Horizon Zero Dawn, which did not need to come to PC. I want to talk about that. Of all the games, that did not need to come to PC. Not surprisingly, it had bugs. But, you know, they fixed the bugs within a couple weeks as opposed to a couple months, which is what happens with most companies. And people I know that have not played it and playing it on PC are absolutely loving it. And Death Stranding as well. So this is all gravy. And so the games we're going to talk about are on all systems, the DC games. But just to do a general bridge in, with the new systems coming out, obviously this is one of those economic things that's not really that affected by COVID because everyone can order online their systems, right? And so you don't need to go to the store anymore. For better or worse, you can order from Amazon or whatever. Where are you at the end of the life cycle here? Are you still playing consoles, or are you like me, mostly PC with some Switch at this point?
I'm still consoling it up, so I'm still playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I'm sure we'll talk about, on Xbox One X.
That's going to be one of your getting a "I told you so" out of me. Yeah, go ahead.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah.
Still playing a lot of Switch, but mainly like I've been sent like a ton of indie games to review on PC. So I've just been like churning through those and really just like sitting in my chair, really enjoying it. I really should stream them, but they're really like, oh, don't stream until it's out. So it's a little bit tough.
Yep. Hold on, what's it? So
But yeah,
obviously,
I did a speed test. My speed's fine.
so you know, I'm going to tease the obvious, which is 2 years ago, PlayStation was kicking the crap out of Xbox in terms of sales. 2 years later, PlayStation is still kicking the crap out of Xbox. In fact, PlayStation is going to sell more units than anything that's not a Nintendo portable system by the time this is all over. It's looking like it might even beat the PS2, which had 150 million units. They're at about 120, 130 with the PS4. And dude, you know they're going to put the PS4 on sale for like $100, $150 when the PS5 comes out and sell more, especially if, as we're hearing, they're going to be making and supporting PS4 games well into 2021. And everyone, the early word, as usual, with the new system was Xbox has more power, and it's going to have Game Pass, and all these games, and Halo's going to be... Oh, wait, Halo doesn't look that good. Oh, wait, PlayStation is already releasing Horizon 2 footage and all these other games. Okay, it's looking like PlayStation has the advantage again for the next system. I've been very much on the record that I don't know what PlayStation is going to do after this next generation because I believe this is the last generation of old school consoles. It's going to have to become home entertainment systems up and down, left and right after that. And I don't know if they can compete with Microsoft because it's Microsoft. But for right now, regardless of the price and the specs, PlayStation 4 has proven that people don't care if the PlayStation is 30% slower than the Xbox One X, as long as they have the games.
They don't.
That has not changed. 2 years ago, we were just talking about God of War. Spider-Man had just come out. Days Gone hadn't come out yet, which you love, which we're going to talk about. I still think games like Odyssey play really well on PlayStation. We're going to talk about that. Do you agree with me, though, in general, that, like, Xbox is just so try-hard? Microsoft is so try-hard. And Sony just kind of sits back and waits and lets Microsoft dig themselves into a hole by talking too much.
Yeah, I think they definitely love to talk themselves up. But really, what sells a console, a system, a generation are the games that define it. And definitely Xbox have maybe had, like, I'm thinking Ori is probably the only real, generation defining game, which you can't even say anymore because it's available on Switch. So it's not really an exclusive. I was going to say that platformer that they had, but that's now available on PlayStation. So they can't get an exclusive that's not Halo that people want to play. They tried Crackdown 3, they tried State of Decay 2, Sea of Thieves.
Well, Game Pass seems great. Game Pass seems great. $5 a month, dozens of games. The problem is only a handful of the games are great.
Yeah, like quality. I think a lot of people with games, because we're so time poor, and who knows if COVID will change this. We're so time poor that I don't want to spend half an hour flicking through Game Pass trying to find a good game when I know that I can just turn my PlayStation 4 on and, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Days Gone, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us 2, etc., etc., etc. Like, hit. I don't need to find it. It's there. And I think that's the definite distinct advantage that they have.
And that's what Sony understands about consoles in general, which is the reason people are going to overpay. Let's be honest, paying $600 for a console when you can get a computer for not that expensive that's good, you're overpaying for the console. But the reason they do it is for what you described, which is sit down, turn on, disc in, not even disc in anymore, turn on, sit back, right? It's the I've worked hard all day. The last thing I want to deal with is Windows booting up and updating its software, and I can't play anything.
Yeah. Yes, your NVIDIA having to update and optimize everything.
Right.
And then by the time it does that, you're just over it. Yeah,
a bug on a PlayStation game is like a little choppy, and they patch it in a week or two. Bugs on PC can go on for forever. I mean, they still have problems with all the Elder Scrolls games. Well, really on all the systems. I hate Bethesda. I don't hate Bethesda, but their quality control is awful. That's a separate topic.
They've taken a turn, haven't they?
Well, actually, Alistair, so we talked about when we were growing up that we grew up in the same generation, that we played Sega and not Nintendo for a while, and that defined us. But we also talked about loving the LucasArts point-and-click games, Full Throttle, Sam & Max, Maniac Mansion, Indiana Jones, The Dig, Monkey Island, etc., but also Doom with the various mods and so forth. So what's interesting with me and you, dude, is we started PC Master Race, and then we've been console guys, and now we're going back at PC Master Race. I want to talk about, at the end, about PCs and about your getting back into PCs, because that's a big topic that I'm interested in, because it has totally taken me away from the PlayStation in a way that's less to do with me disliking the PlayStation and more with me just really enjoying being back on the PC. We will get to that. But I agree with you. I think Sony gets, guys, I'm always talking about reading the book Console Wars, which is an unbelievable story that's specifically about Nintendo versus Sega in the early 90s and how Sega was smashing Nintendo to bits, but because Sega couldn't keep a consistent message, and Sega of Japan and Sega of America just were always fighting and couldn't get along, and Nintendo was always one step back, but they were cautious, conservative, but they knew what their product was. In the end, they let Sega essentially cannibalize and self-immolate, and that ended up, along with Nintendo, doing things like Donkey Kong Country, which looked amazing on the Super NES at a time when they didn't think that was going to be possible, and stuff. But dude, the famous story was, that's the Sony guys who were working with Philips, who made the original CD-ROMs. Philips and Sony were like playing all the sides. There was a time when Nintendo was gonna get the deal for that version of CD-ROMs, and they passed. And Sega, the American guy who was the genius, Kalinsky, wanted to do it. Sega of Japan says, no, that's too far out. We're not doing CD-ROMs. That's not the future. Of course, they were wrong. And eventually, Sony says, you know what? Why don't we start our own system? And this guy, Olafson, who was sort of the PR guy for Sony, it was E3 or whatever in the mid-90s when the PlayStation 1 launched. This is a true story. Nintendo did their big spiel. Sega did their big spiel. Olafson got up on stage and just said, after the other systems had announced like $399 or something or more for the new systems, Olafson, people had already heard it was a better system, just leans in the mic and goes, $299, and walked off stage. Mic drop. And at that moment, Tom Kalinske, who ran Sega, knew that they were fucked because they already knew the PlayStation was a superior system and is going to be cheaper or whatever. So guys, read Console Wars if you're into that stuff. So okay, video games now. We're going to talk about DC. Let's do a hard turn into DC. We've got 2 DC games. One which I'm obsessed with and drove me crazy in the best ways possible. I've seen it a million times, and I can't believe I didn't see coming. The other one looks cool. It's not really my type, but they both look amazing and groundbreaking, both graphically and possibly in terms of gameplay. So, Alistair, before we get into the Gotham Knights and Suicide Kill the Justice League game reveals, which were excellently executed by DC at the convention, showing 8 minutes of gameplay when almost no one shows gameplay. Out of nowhere, we get 8 minutes of Gotham Knights gameplay. I have to ask, did you know at all about one or both of these games ahead of time? And if so, what did you know?
All I knew were the names. So I knew Gotham Knights based around Court of Owls, and I knew Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League because we had that poster reveal that Rocksteady just couldn't keep their mouth shut. So that's all I knew. I didn't know what type of game it was going to be. Characters, any of that. I think Gotham Knights was the most surprising because we'll talk about that after we've watched the trailer.
It's clearly a next generation game. I don't care what systems it's on. You watch that and you're like, I'm not buying this on my PS4. I'm either getting this for my PC or my PS5 or next Xbox. Like, yeah, go ahead.
Definitely. So I was very, very impressed, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
So did you know Gotham Knights was going to be WB Montreal, and then Rocksteady was going to be doing... Okay.
Suicide Squad. So Rocksteady released a poster 3 days before DC FanDome. With Superman with a target on the back of his head. And then someone leaked it was the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. Gotham Knights, we knew that was coming. They launched their website 3 days before the event. And planted all this code, and someone decrypted Batgirl and Two-Face out of the code.
So I'm going to give a few pieces of information before each clip. We're going to do Gotham Knights first because that's what they showed first. It's coming out in 2021. It's confirmed that it's going to also be on the PS4 and Xbox One, in addition to the X and the 5 and Windows. While they're both being published by Warner Brothers Entertainment, obviously, this is WB Games Montreal. But what's interesting, man, is that Suicide Squad, because it's Rocksteady, is considered in the Arkham series because it's being developed by Rocksteady and a lot of the same people. Now, that's coming out 2022, dude, so that means, that's for sure only going to be on the new systems. I think it's smart.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's brilliant, the one that they're doing first. I think you're going to agree with me that the order of this release is exactly the way they should do it. I'm going to freak out when we get there, Alistair. When you started seeing the footage of this, you must have thought of Brittany and or me almost immediately upon seeing the footage about what we're about to watch, correct?
Yeah, I did, yeah. It was, keep in mind, it was 3 a.m. when I watched this live.
Preview there. Yep.
So I was still very tired. The Wonder Woman panel was right before this, so that was already like I was just getting over that trailer, and then they dropped this, and then gameplay, and you're just like, what?
I have to say about two things really quick about the Wonder Woman trailer. I was for a very long time not on board with the Chris Pine thing because even though I love him and they have great chemistry, I felt like it completely nullified and negated the sacrifice that he made in the first movie. But without spoilers, people who know more about the comics than me talked me into it. And goddamn, how can you not love? I mean, you can tell when they're improvising. They're so hilarious. He's putting the clothes on. She's like, I think we can do better. I mean, it's so funny. And the other thing was, dude, you know that they're confident when they start the second trailer with the big ending of the first trailer. So the big, like, ride in the thunder, ride in the lightning at the end of the first trailer, they started that with the second trailer, and you're like, oh, they're so confident. We haven't seen, other than maybe the golden costume, which we won't go into now, they're definitely holding back. They don't need to spoil it like they did a little bit with the first movie. They can hold back on this one. I was very impressed. So, Gotham Knights, world premiere trailer. They gave us the story trailer, intro, which we're going to watch together, and 8 minutes of gameplay, which, as you know, dude, even at E3, when they promise gameplay, it's often not actually gameplay. This was gameplay.
Yes, Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the guy they got to announce this, the gameplay stuff is great. You guys are going to hear all of that.
Yeah.
So I've already done multiple commentaries on this, dude, so feel free to talk.
Oh.
I'm going to put the volume pretty loud, but, like, feel free to talk over it about certain things. Jason Ritter is starting to make me understand what the Court of Owls is. I love the concept, and I got the digital comics via Comixology for free. Yes. And so
wow.
Yeah, so I'm going to get caught up on that. But it sounds like a totally twisted storyline, which you know I love, so I'm pumped for. So anything before we saw the Gotham Knights trailer? I launched the Gotham Knights trailer.
No, roll it. Let's go.
All right. Hopefully the volume's okay. You can let me know.
Reports of an explosion somewhere north of the city.
We're still waiting for the police to confirm if there are any victims. This story is evolving rapidly. Please bear with us.
We heard this really loud boom. There was smoke everywhere.
Emergency services have
no
confirmed
volume.
that they've discovered a body buried in the...
Oh, you don't have the volume?
Just so you know, there's no volume.
Oh, you might have to play it. You might have to
Twitch.
play it on your end.
Yeah, hang on a sec. I was just queuing it up in case this happened.
I thought of that too. And I forgot. Sorry about that. I'm
No,
I'm
it's
sure
alright.
there's
I
a
had it-
pass through here, but I can't. Yeah.
I had it queued up ready, so give me one sec.
Sure.
This is just the reveal trailer,
This
right?
is
Not
the
gameplay.
they call it the premiere trailer. Yeah, the 4 minutes 48
Okay,
seconds.
got it.
Are you at 0?
All right, good to go.
You at
Yep.
0? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Boom.
In breaking news, we've received reports of an explosion somewhere north of the
We're
city.
still waiting for the police to confirm if
I couldn't
there
believe
are
this
any
opening bit.
victims. This story is evolving rapidly. Please bear with
We heard
us.
this really loud boom. There was smoke everywhere.
Emergency services have confirmed that they've discovered a body buried in the wreckage. We're still waiting for further details.
Emergency vehicles are
That a large portion of the building has actually
In
collapsed.
international news, an explosion
You know it's coming.
rocked
You
Gotham
know it's
City
coming.
earlier
We are
today.
now able to confirm that
I
billionaire
think-
philanthropist Bruce
Yeah, I
Smith
think
is
the
deceased.
intro part shocked me the most.
In the calm way he announces his death after his death is just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like we all knew this was gonna happen, guys. Here we go. Code Black. Here we go. I love that he looks different, different voice. That's what they should do.
If you're watching this, I'm dead.
Oh man.
This is a code black.
Just like look at the all the features on the face, the eyes, like it's just
This message was
it
automatically
looks
triggered when
next
I
gen,
destroyed the cave and
100%.
everything it contained.
And I know it's a CG trailer,
We both know
but
it
it
won't take
still
long for
looks
Gotham's criminals to
incredible.
realize the Batman is gone.
It looks like the Halo
You can't
2
count on
remaster,
GCPD.
which looks spectacular with the
Haven't
cutscenes.
trusted
Actually,
us since Jim died.
best cutscenes I've seen.
Gotham will need its protectors more
And dude,
than ever.
this is the best way to set up Team Batman post
I'm
Batman.
leaving you the
This is it right here.
Operations.
Yeah.
Some of the technology is outdated.
Someone's got to save the city.
But it has the gear you need and all of my files.
I missed the Barbara Gordon with the Jim Gordon death. Oh
I know
man,
you'll keep Gotham safe. Yeah. Good luck.
I know you'll keep Gotham safe. And you're like, all right, baby, let's do this. Let's do this. I thought that was gonna be it. I thought that was gonna be it. Oh baby.
Oh really? You thought that was the whole trailer?
I thought that was it for both trailers. Oh yeah, dude, the 4 symbols that they're using is amazing.
Yeah, I think they're much further along than we thought they would be with the game.
So
much further along.
They focus on Batgirl, but having this first shot
a
with
lot.
this first shot with Robin is spectacular. This Matrix shot. Look at that! Oh! Oh, Babs, baby, my girl! Woo! This one's for you, Brittany. Yeah. Oh, Nightwing always looks amazing. I didn't know about Red Hood, but apparently he's dope.
Yeah, he's a bit of a controversial character.
Because he's murdering people.
He gets overused, and especially in the Batman verse.
Dude,
as
sorry,
an
not a
the thing-
coincidence.
oh,
Nightwing
Jason
and
Todd.
Batgirl walking together. Not a coincidence. Those two are lovebirds. Oh my god. So now I'm thinking this is really it. 3 or 4 minutes of this. This is all we're getting. This is it.
And you know what? If this was the only trailer we saw, it still
It's
would
still
have
amazing.
been
Yeah.
just as amazing.
Yeah.
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 Definitely.
And that's why I'm giving the whole con tons of props because they gave us, in almost all cases, more than they needed to.
Yeah. And you know what? It could be that DC were controlling this whole thing. There was no, it's not like
Here
you're
we
part
go.
of a big event.
All right, Alistair, Court of Owls in 30 seconds. Go. What the hell is this scary? Is this like the Prestige with all these extra bodies lying around? Like, what the hell is it coming up? This looks like the Matrix.
I don't know if I want to spoil it because
Okay.
I feel like it's best explored if you don't know anything.
Is this a storyline worthy of a game that looks this great in Epic?
Yes,
Okay.
100%. I know that they want to do this in the movies, and I don't think they should because this looks like the correct way to do it.
So, really quickly, that was amazing. Really quickly, Jason Ritter, who is Batman's his guy, like you grew up with Aquaman, Batman is his guy through and through and through, as much as he loves all DC. He's actually a big fan of New 52 Batman. I know there's different opinions about New 52 in general, but because of the Court of Owls in particular, those early volumes, he's a fan. And he says he's heard some stuff that Reeves is going to... obviously, Long Halloween is the main source material for the first Batman movie, but he heard that Reeves is very interested in doing a Court of Owls storyline as well, so we'll have to see about that. So, any thoughts about the reveal trailer, or should we go right to the gameplay, which is just amazing?
Let's go straight into gameplay.
Okay, awesome. Let me get it queued up here. So, tell me when you're at 0, and we'll do this.
I'm at 0.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
Boom.
Alistair, I didn't know about these games. I didn't know they were happening. I didn't know what Gotham Knights was. I didn't know it was going to be Team Batman minus Batman. I certainly did not know about Barbara Gordon. And I was texting the shit out of you and Jason during this whole thing. I was losing my mind. I have more stories about this, but you were there on ground zero for me losing my freaking mind.
Hi, I'm Patrick Redding, creative director on Gotham Knights.
Talk for a second. I'll be
On
right
behalf
back.
of the whole team at WB
Okay.
Games Montreal, I'm really honored to give you a quick look at our
this
gameplay.
whole thing is like in-game footage. It's not
Whatever's
CG.
causing
This is
this
in-game.
is localized at the top.
That just
We're going to look at a
blows
short clip from one of
my
Gotham Knight's villain
that it
crimes
looks
in a
this
pre-alpha build.
You guys can
very
watch
keen
my
to see
10-minute
This mission
losing
is
my mind.
halfway
voice,
through the
by
Mr.
way.
Freeze storyline, and we're playing Batgirl a dozen or
is it
so
on
hours
YouTube?
into her character progression.
Yep, it's on YouTube and Twitch.
amazing.
They got the perfect guy's voice to sort of do play-by-play without interfering. I mean, this already looks cooler than Arkham Knight. Not just,
Yeah.
I mean, graphically, yes, but this right here, this is when
But
I knew.
just-
Freeze has recently returned to
And just
Gotham
even
with a
like the
mysterious
city
agenda that
looks
involves manipulating
alive
the weather to
and
flash freeze.
populated and real, and whereas the Arkham games they're kind
goal for
of
Gotham
not.
Knights was that
And I
players
know
could
it's
play
Christmas and
all
it's
of
not
the
meant to.
game, either
But
solo or
I don't know,
multiplayer
this just
co-op.
feels, the Gotham in this already just feels alive and thriving. So that's exciting for me. It feels like a different
And
version of Gotham.
between the
Robinson
teammates
had
in the
access to
co-op, but
Justice League
also the
satellite
way they're
for short-range teleportation.
discussing this, and you got Alfred coming in to talk about stuff. This is going to be a mission-based game that's more role-playing game
Well, Batgirl
than
is
Arkham,
mastered
right?
some
Arkham is you swing
more
around,
familiar
you
techniques.
beat up some
Yeah.
guys. There's a quick mission, you swing around, you beat up some guys. This whole thing is one long, planned narrative mission. And while this is clearly Assassin's Creed stuff here, man, where you see their level, right? Like,
and develop
I think
few
red,
new
I believe red means you're out of, if it's black, you're in stealth. If they're red, they can see you. You can see the damage they're doing. You and I love Assassin's Creed. We'll get to that later. This looks amazing. The fighting, it looks way more dynamic and fun than the Arkham games. But the narrative aspect of this with the 4 characters and the fact, dude, they have to write stories for all 4 characters as the lead for this is just this unbelievable undertaking. Go ahead.
And I love that Montoya is in it.
The storm is getting worse. You need to hurry
Love it,
and
love
find
it, love
a
it.
way inside
This game is
everything.
bigger than arguably than anything they've ever done, unless it's much shorter than I think it is. How did they keep this
Well-
mostly under wraps for so long?
Because no, they haven't done anything since Arkham Origins that is universally hated. So they've had a lot of time. And same with Rocksteady, though. They haven't done anything since Arkham Knight. And that was like the beginning of PlayStation 4 gen. So they both had quite a long time to get
Here
their,
we go. We got
their
some Tomb Raider
together.
stuff. We have multiple Tomb Raider stuff with her.
I meant to do that.
If anyone asked, I meant to do that. Such a Babs line. So, dude, in the initial watching, they hadn't announced anyone whose voices, and I kept praising the voice. I'm like, this is the perfect older Barbara Gordon, more mature Barbara Gordon voice. I love this voice. I love this performance. Everyone sounds great. They're all dialoguing with each other. And then Tara Platt, who's one of my favorite voice actors, she does one of the leads in the new Fire Emblem game. She does a lot of voices. She's friends with this woman, America Young. America Young on her Twitter account that not that many people follow because she's kind of new, posted I am Batgirl, but Tara Platt reposted it, and I was like, that's who it is. And Tara Platt knows her, so she's amazing. And then I posted a bunch of clips of myself, and America Young was nice enough to post back that she watched it, and you know, especially when you know this, when voice actors are new to the scene and playing characters like Babs, who are iconic, but like maybe like not, they think are gonna not everyone's gonna love or whatever, blah blah blah. It must be, you know, great to see, especially as a newer voice actress, and she does a great job. Everyone sounds great. They just focus on Babs. So what did you think about the focus on Babs and the voice work in general?
I think it's very, very smart to focus on her. I guess we've, you know, played as Batman for far too long. So focusing this around like the female character and then, you know, going hand in hand with everything else they're trying to do with female characters, it's just the perfect thing to do.
And by the way, I pointed out with some other Batgirl fans online that if you watch all the characters, what we see of them, and then Babs is one of the more aggro characters. Like the men are doing stealthy stuff. Babs is just punching dudes, which is straight from the comics.
And she's...
But it's
yeah.
important to do. It would be easy to be like, oh, the girl's just doing stealthy stuff, right? That was what was important in Tomb Raider, was making Lara, like if you wanted straight aggro. But Babs, while she has some stealthy stuff, is just likely to pull someone up on her zip cord and punch him down on the ground, which I love.
Yeah.
Here's the Lara
Yeah.
Croft shot. Here's the Lara Croft shot. We see this. But when Tomb Raider, every time you do this, you're going, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
The temperature's still falling.
There's Alfred. I don't know who plays Alfred.
Now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Actually.
So they said this
Let
is
me just
pre-alpha.
do a quick Google.
Can we compare
Yeah,
this
like
pre-alpha?
how crazy is that? Pre-alpha.
Can we compare this to Halo Infinite reveal? I'm sorry, I have to make the comparison. This looks like almost a completed
True.
game.
So Alfred is voiced by Gildart Jackson, his name is.
Look at this costume, looks amazing. Dude, okay, so look, they take the Burnside costume, they make it look older and more mature, they make it armored, they give her the white eyes and the cowl and the nose. They had to make her look the most like Batman because she's the new Batman. You know what I mean? Like, Robin is his own guy. But, like, Batgirl needs to take the mantle, you know, as she does in the comics.
Yeah, definitely.
But you still got the red hair flowing in the wind. It's just an amazing design. Amazing design. And dude, online co-op, you just don't see that much in games.
Yeah, especially games like this.
Nothing can stop it.
See about that.
She's straight up taking on Mr. Freeze with her baton. You gotta love it. Oh, this is great. So they didn't announce any of the voice actors, and then they all tweeted the same thing. I am Batman, I am Nightwing, I am, you know, Red Hood or whatever, which is super cool. The guy who plays Nightwing, by the way, dude, was one of the leads in Star Wars Resistance, who's a great up-and-coming voice actor who I met briefly at Star Wars Celebration. Is a very sweet and very good-looking guy. That's the funny thing about voice actors. They're almost all beautiful people. I have to look it up. But the voice actors are so great. Up there it is, Gotham Knights. So cool. So cool. So
it's such a good logo too. I really like the logo.
There we go. So at what point were you hooked into this whole, or was it like a multi-tiered thing? And what was your final thoughts after seeing it numerous times?
Look, initially, I think everything that I saw at DC FanDome initially was like, oh my god, that's so great. But I think what stood out with the games is that we haven't had a DC game in a while. Like, the last one was Injustice 2. And that's like a brawler, so we haven't really had a game
which
like
got good
this.
reviews. Let's point out, for all their flaws, the Arkham games and the Injustice games, for the most part, have gotten good reviews.
Amazing.
And other than Spider-Man on PlayStation, which was Sony 2 years ago, Marvel has never, ever released a great game. And it's just interesting because you would think the most popular, most famous superhero by far, Batman, would have the most trouble maintaining, you know what I mean, maintaining great games. The Arkham games across the, I mean, the debate is which Arkham game do you like the best? You know, Origins maybe no one would say, but the other three are all up for debate of which is the best. It's been amazing. Dude, even the Telltale games. I love playing the Batman Telltale games. That was so super fun because you get to do the detective stuff. Oh, I wanted to point out really quickly, I talked about when I was when Babs jumped off the motorcycle and then she starts scanning the skyline, and then Alfred comes in, and then you hear her talking with the teammates and so forth. What I loved about the old Call of Duty games, especially the original Modern Warfare games, was even though your teammates may or may not have been doing a whole lot, it felt like they were. You know what I mean? It felt like you were part of a unit of soldiers, and they would do just enough. And there were some missions where they did a lot, some missions when it was up on you or whatever, but you were one of the grunts, you were one of the soldiers, you were rarely the lead or whatever. You get Captain Price and, you know, and the various leaders and so forth. This is even another level because you're co-oping it, so you might have another human player. But even if you have AI teammates like in Ghost Recon, one of the reasons, I mean, Breakpoint's terrible, but the older Ghost Recon games I love because the AI teammates are pretty smart when you tell them what to do, and it adds a great element to it. But this narratively, right, I mean, you had to have 4 characters if you're going to, quote-unquote, replace Batman, but they're also technologically on a whole new level because they can use 4 different people's technology, plus I'm sure you have Lucius. And is this making sense? Like, everything gameplay-wise seemed on the next level. I wasn't even focused on how great the graphics were because the kinetic, but also sort of logicalness of everything going on just totally clicked in my head. And it helped that it was Babs narrating it because, you know, Babs has the inner monologue in the comic books where she's, you know, tracing everything 10 steps in advance or whatever. And they're all brilliant in their own ways, but it's a big part of Babs' character in the comic books that you see her do the okay, so the bullet's gonna go here, and so I'm gonna go here, you know. and they seem to be working that in with all the characters, because this is the dream team, right? These are the best fighters, but also the smartest ones. Code Black. This is Batman's dream team. If worst case scenarios happen and he has to go in, okay, I'll shut up. You talk about Gotham Knights, because I can't imagine this is going to be not at least super fun. And I just, if it's not buggy, given previous Batman games, and then like you said, we needed a Batman game without Batman, and I wanted Batgirl, but I love Nightwing, and Robin when he's cool is cool. I'm cool with having a controversial character like Red Hood because they can work that into the storyline. Let's be honest, that could be a really interesting part of the storyline. Like, Babs is not going to be happy with him killing people. I'm sure that's going to come up. So you talk about Gotham Knights. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the gameplay I'm most excited for too is having that online co-op mission play, and being able to have someone next to me pick up a controller and jump in and jump out, while you're not doing grindy, online-y, fetch quest missions, makes me really excited for this game. And that's something that the developer did confirm. So that's very exciting for me. And just not having to play just as one character the whole time, you can flick between them. That's very, very exciting. Obviously, there'll be sections where you can only play as a certain character. But overall, just being able to flick between the four. And who knows what else? I'm sure there'll be DLC characters. I wouldn't be surprised if we get Batwoman as a DLC character. Who knows?
Don't need Batwoman when you got Batgirl. Sorry. Don't need her.
Well, you can have both. They're very, very different people.
Yeah, I mean, Batwoman's more on the murderous side, so that would be interesting in terms of that.
Yeah, like she would probably come in as like a Red Hood. Listen to us, conspiracy theorists. As a Red Hood thing, and yeah, I don't know. I'm down for this roster of characters, and definitely keen to be able to play online. Remember how great SharePlay worked with Ghost of Tsushima?
So guys, so I never thought PlayStation SharePlay would work even locally. But I was playing Ghost of Tsushima on Alistair's PlayStation. Now, you have upgraded internet, and I have amazing internet, but you now have upgraded internet. And I was playing it with less than a half-second delay, to the point where I haven't gotten very far in the game because I just haven't had time to really get into it, and I'm moving in 2 weeks, and I just decided I'm just going to wait on the game until I move and then just go hog on it. But, like, I was almost as good there as I am playing live here. Like, that's how little lag there was. It was, and you threw it to me. It's like, you know how Tony Stark has the little hologram thing that he just like throws, you know what I mean? That's like, it was essentially the internet game version of that, right? You just kind of tossed it to me digitally, and then I tossed it back. It was awesome. It was totally great. By the way, guys, Alistair is totally an aggro, go right at your face player. So if you ever play Alistair in a multiplayer game, he is pure aggro, no stealth, no subtlety. He's just taking the sword right to the face. It's great. It's absolutely. I was sneaking through the bushes and stuff. You were just like, no, fuck that. It was awesome. But yeah, that was amazing SharePlay. Can you imagine what they could do with the PS5 hardware, dude, and faster internet? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get to that later because I've got lots of thoughts.
And by the way, really quickly, of course, you know, people always want to find something to complain about. Oh, why don't they have 4-person co-op? Well, guys, it's harder to do than you think. That being said, patching in 4-player co-op down the road, especially with the transition from the old to the new systems, is totally possible. I mean, from a programming standpoint, that's 1,000% possible. So we might be able to see that, especially if it's 2 locally and 2, like if you're sitting with me on a couch and then 2 other people on their couch. Totally doable. So, but even if it's you and me, and then we've got the other 2 guys, AI is amazing. Yeah,
definitely. Look, even the thing is, they've got time, right? We've seen all this gameplay footage. We've seen this CGI footage. This is pre-alpha, and it looks this good. So imagine when it comes out. I'm thinking middle of next year, how good it's going to be, and then they've got time for like support and patching and all that stuff later. The main thing is that they get the gameplay right. They get these characters right. And it looks like they're 90% there at the moment. So I'm down for that stuff. That stuff can wait. That's fine.
Okay. how would you feel about, because you got to do the carrot and the stick when it comes to podcasting, and everyone wants to see Harley in the Suicide Squad. How would you feel about talking some video game topics and then giving people what they want as the climax with the Suicide Squad, and then we'll go out on that?
Yeah, go for it.
Rather than just doing DC back to back. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, go for it. Let's do it.
All right, so let me just quickly close out the Gotham Knights stuff. I have the Suicide Squad stuff open for when we eventually get there. So, all right, Alistair. So 2 years ago, October 2018, we had our little talk. We talked about politics a bit. We talked the Alana Pierce story, who were both sick of her, but it was a hilarious story about her male fans coming after me to protect her honor because they thought I was going after her with an article that was a satire about right-wingers going after her, and they thought I was destroying her and whatever. And that was my first time of like, all right, let's get off this. And so we talked about that. We talked about waifus, and you talked about your Full Throttle crush growing up, and I talked about Chloe Frazier. We talked about some of our other waifus, and just the whole notion of waifus. And then we talked about games. At that point, PlayStation was already dominating with the exclusive. God of War had just come out. We were predicting it would be Game of the Year. Of course, it ended up being Game of the Year, so we were right about that, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm going to name a few games, Alistair, that you brought up that I had not played at that time and have played since then. 3 in particular who have become among my favorite games, okay? Now, 1 is a multi-property game that you know what it is. I'm going to save because I hadn't done anything with this property up until that point. I'm going to save it. The first is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I was kind of shitting on Ubisoft at that point because I liked but didn't love Origins. Odyssey had not been released yet at that point. I was saying I said it looked like Assassin's Creed was on an upward trajectory. I had played every Assassin's Creed game since 2, and I liked it, but I never was as good as I wanted, even Black Flag, and you were really extolling it, and you thought that Odyssey was going to be the step into the next level. And 130 hours and 62 levels later with Cassandra on the PlayStation 4, which looks great and plays great. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah. Odyssey plays great on the PlayStation 4. It burns my CPU on the computer. It plays so hot. It plays great. I love Cassandra. I love both characters, but I play Cassandra, of course. And the story was much better than I thought. It has everything Assassin's Creed I love. It brings in Witcher stuff. It brings in Horizon stuff. It has no problem. I mean, The Witcher, it looks just like The Witcher dialogue. There's certain things that look just like the Horizon UI. It's shameless, but who cares, you know? Because it's still, I mean, it's barely Assassin's Creed in the old sense. It's a big open world game in the Assassin's Creed style of things. That hadn't come out yet. You and I have both played a ton of it. I played more of it than you overall, but it's been longer, and you've been playing it a lot lately. Now, we should mention, when it first came out, as often with Ubisoft, it was a bit buggy, but the bigger problem was the microtransactions, was that it was extremely hard, even on easy level, to level up in the early game without paying for gear, essentially. And they fixed they fixed all of that, and I did what I always do, which was wait 6 months on a game. You know what I mean? I waited 6 months on Mass Effect Andromeda for them to patch it. I waited on Horizon, which I didn't need to, but I still waited on Horizon so I could get the whole package. And I waited on Odyssey. By the time I got Odyssey, the only thing you need to pay money for was, clothing and horses and stuff. It was not hard to level up whatsoever. So, were you aware of that early problems with Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Were you playing at that point? Should we hold it against it that was the case, even though you and I love the game now? Like, let's put it this way. Even my friends who are even madder about that issue than I am agree that if they had just avoided that and gone straight into the Odyssey we know now, that was Game of the Year material. Maybe not win Game of the Year, but would have for sure been nominated for Game of the Year if it hadn't been for the early controversy. I agree with that. I think that they were disqualified because of the microtransaction thing. I think Ubisoft's learned their lesson. Division, you don't have to spend any money. You know, even though it's a looter shooter, I mean, there's really nothing to even buy in Division 2. I look at the store just for fun. There's really nothing to buy that's even interesting. They've learned their lesson. So give me a little personal history of Odyssey, because I know we both love it.
Yeah, look, with Odyssey, I played it as soon as it came out. and stopped because of the bugs and the microtransactions. They also had a bit of issues with the DLC, so a lot of choices in the game. If you choose to sleep with a character of the same sex, the DLC came along and wiped out all of those decisions and forced you into a heteronormative family,
Which is so
which
bizarre
sucked,
because as
and that-
Cassandra, I only hooked up with women. It wasn't even that hard, and it was very sweet and
Yeah.
romantic the way it all went down in
Yeah.
general.
yeah.
So that's a huge
Whereas
that's a
with,
huge content fix, which is harder in some ways. It's like movie reshoots, right? Movie reshoots sometimes you just need to get action shots, which actually isn't that hard. In some cases, the one I always use is Rogue One, which needed major content rewrites and reshoots because the characters just weren't dimensional enough, and they 2 months with these Academy level actors giving them much better lines and much better characters, and it was a much better movie. That's content reshoots. That's very hard to pull off. They were very lucky. So you're talking about content reshoots essentially, which is very hard to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I played enough to write a review and then put the controller down, and then I think it was like Christmas. Yeah, Christmas last year. I had like 3 weeks off and I had not much to do. And yeah, I was like, all right, let's pick it up again, and just got sucked into it. And I've been playing it on and off ever since. I really don't want it to be over because I'm really enjoying it. So I'm trying not to barrel through it too much and just kind of explore.
It's
and
never over,
you
is
know,
the great
get
part.
everything down. And yeah. Well, obviously I've got a time frame now, right? Valhalla comes out in November, so I need to be done with this game before November. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So I just hit
looky
level
what
4.
I found here.
What did you find?
I found you playing Assassin's Creed.
Oh god, you're gonna show clips of when I was shit, aren't you? 35, yeah, this will be the shit clips. Oh.
You get to see Alistair.
Do you know what's
twice.
really funny?
Yeah.
Is I only found out the other day that so I got confused why they were calling him Mystios and not Alexios all through the game. And I thought Mystios was like a nickname.
It means
that
mercenary.
Everyone just, I know, but I was just like, oh, that's a cool nickname. And then I only figured that out. When did I play? Last night.
Well, not to
And I was
mention,
like, no.
when you play Cassandra, he has yet another name because he's the bad guy. I assume Cassandra's the bad guy when you play him, right? I assume she's the bad guy.
Yes.
So she
Correct.
I don't know if she has the same bad guy name. I would love to see her play the bad guy. I could see it with the voice actress, but it's a little bit of a stretch. Look, getting foreign actors and actresses to do this stuff is awesome. I give them so many props, but like getting ones this good that can play so many versions of themselves and two that are diametrically opposed.
Crazy.
There's not a lot of Hollywood actors that can do that, man. Let's be honest. I mean, you know, people like in DC television, for example, people have to play evil versions of themselves all the time. But like playing an evil version, you know, like
every week.
Well, it's like Killer Frost. You know what I mean? It's like you can do that. You know, and a lot of these actors are very good, but TV is a little bit different than hours and hours and hours of video game of playing another side of yourself. You know, like. You know how insane it is, all the lines they have to record, and so forth. So, what is so great about this game? We'll forget the early release problems and the sexuality problems and the microtransaction problems, which they've really all fixed, in my opinion, up till this point. What is so great about this game? Because for me, it's not even that this is the best Assassin's Creed game. It's just one of the best third-person action RPG games I've ever played.
Yeah, like for me, it's up there with Witcher 3. Not as good, but it's like on that similar level.
I have Witcher 3 and
like,
Horizon, and then Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like not too far below, honestly. Yeah.
And I really feel like it's the story writing. Like a lot of times with side missions and DLC, I like flick through the dialogue, like yeah, whatever. This game, like I actually care what the story is and what the characters are doing and what's happening in the world. I want to know. And for a game to get me to do that and hold my attention is such a good thing. And that I think that speaks volumes about the quality of the writing and the story, which they just nailed.
So, again, what puts The Witcher 3 and Horizon above it for me is the fact that those are transcendent, all-time great stories that I would love to see in a movie, in a book, anywhere.
Yeah.
But this had a way better story than I was expecting. But the difference is, well, The Witcher, look, The Witcher's the best because it has the best central story and the best side stories. Horizon side stories, some good, some not great. The central Horizon story, though, is so transcendent and cool that, you know what I mean? It gets an A+ story-wise for me. This game, central story, because there's a few central stories and there's like 3 different endings and it's a little weird. But these side stories and even the mini quests in this are so much more interesting than you would expect. And I know some people, like, you look here, say the facial animations are weird. I don't care, I mean... It's almost getting too realistic in some games. I almost prefer a little bit more stylized like this. I mean, Alexios and Cassandra look amazing in the face. Were you also surprised? Because Origins had a great central story with the husband and wife tale and their dead kid and so forth, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. I loved Origins. And this is what, fueled me into Odyssey. I think the Assassin's Creed games before this weren't on this level, so I was always a bit skeptical about we got to show the water jumping into Origins. But like just the facial animations and like the way, I don't want to get too crass, but like when you play as Alexios and you go to parties and have orgies, just how like rough and rough these warriors were and everything just really translates well in the game. And the naval gameplay, like everyone's like, Black Flag has the best naval gameplay ever. I'm like, do you know what? This game has the best naval gameplay, mate. This game
and it's optional, and you don't even have to do that much of it. In Black Flag, it's like
you're not
so much Navy. I don't do that much Navy because I don't care, but when I do it, it's so fucking fun.
Yeah, because you're not being, it's not overdone and, oh, great, I'm back on the boat. Like, you can level up your ship. And this is what I noticed about this. This is from last night. This is what I noticed is that, like, I could level up my ship and all these new cool things were happening on the ship because I hadn't been playing it for a while. So it was a lot more fun to play. So they really nailed this. And the water just looks...
Oh, beautiful. Everything looks beautiful. Again, on the PlayStation, look, the best looking game on the PlayStation 4 in terms of it has no right to look that good, I think is Destiny 2. But that's just because Destiny 2 is optimized to an insane level and looks beautiful and everything. But the best game in terms of a game that I really like to play that really shouldn't look great is this game. And the upgrade from this to like high graphics on PC... I want to bring this up with Horizon if we have time for it later. It's not that much of a jump from the PlayStation to the PC. For a non-PlayStation exclusive, that's extremely impressive. There you go. You sunk the ship. A nice job. But yeah, dude, that's what's great is everything's optional in this game. And I want to point out a few things. Is that Origins introduced a couple things that hardcore Assassin's Creed players might not like, but was clearly building towards this game. One, that I know you and I agree on, is you could play full aggro if you wanted to. Now, I like to stealth a little bit. Like, I like to take out 3 or 4 guys stealth-wise and then go to town. But you and I are not that different in terms of me just wanting to go to town. But Odyssey took the combat to another level with the combat wheel where you could have, 8 melee skills and 8 bow skills all preset and, like... But they weren't like specials, like that's how you fought. Like if you're just swinging your weapon in Odyssey, you're not playing correctly. Because I do assassin, but a lot of the assassin techniques you can use in battle and are extremely powerful, right? And so, I mean, this is sort of a leading question, but you being an aggro player and me being mostly an aggro player, this sort of game speaks to us. And by the way, dude, I love Batman, and some of the Middle-earth games by the same WB, people look cool. The finishing moves in this game are the best by far. There are so many finishing moves. And the fact that you can spin the camera yourself as the moves are going on. And by the way, when you have the Trojan army versus the Spartan army, I mean, what other game allows you to play 100 soldiers versus 100 soldiers, and yet you're in charge on the battlefield? No slowdown in performance? Like, that's again, so sad about the release problems. This should have been Game of the Year, or at least Game of the Year contender. What sticks out to you of all the things I mentioned, or maybe some other stuff?
I think, I agree with all of your points, definitely. I think me taking a big break playing the game was definitely a mistake. I do like that I waited because the DLC so far has been fantastic. And I haven't even scratched the surface. I haven't started on the Atlanta stuff. So I'm very, very excited as to what's going to happen there. I find, like, calling the horse is such an easy thing. Like last night I really got down to calling my horse and being able to jump straight on it and just go. And that sounds like something really simple, but it just happens so effortlessly. The animation is just really fluent. And that's something, getting that little stuff right really makes a difference. So I think when I logged off last night, I was up to 50 hours.
So you're taking on a level 34 mercenary here, or 36. What level are you on?
I think I was
well ahead of this guy. You're murdering him. You're destroying this guy.
Yeah, I think I was 38.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what's interesting is, Ghost of Tsushima, they specifically, for the most part, don't have a lock-on feature. Oh, here we go. The giant attack. Amazing. Well, you can lock on in games like this. I don't ever really do it.
I don't. No.
I prefer to keep it fluid because you know where he is and where he's coming from.
And if there's like a whole, like if you go into like
here you go,
a castle or
a
fort and
oh, nice. Yeah, in a castle or fort.
And yeah, if you like lock on and there's like 5 enemies around you and you take on all of them at once, it's just easier not to lock on, and then you can just take out a few at a time.
Very cool. Very cool. How are you feeling about Valhalla? I love Vikings culture. I even like some of the Viking show. I've been to Scandinavia. I just think, for me, Africa, as someplace I've been to and love with origins, and Greece, as someone who studied philosophy in college and loved that, like, Socrates and Democritus were characters. Those two environments I love. The problem is the Vikings were just killers who were very poor with rudimentary weapons, and they expanded because they had nothing. They were living with nothing, and they had to. It's pure economics with them. And even God of War, it's supposedly Vikings, but who's your lead character? He's from Sparta. You know what I mean? So what's your feeling about where Valhalla is? Do we even know where it is? And do you have expectations that it can surpass Odyssey or even meet Odyssey?
I'm throwing my expectations out the window.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Because this is going to be the first game that I play on PlayStation 5. So
interesting.
Because it's coming out the week after Cyberpunk comes out, and I'm sorry, but Cyberpunk will get my full and undivided attention for who knows how long. Definitely until the PS5 comes out.
Unless it's covered in bugs and you have to wait 2 months for it to be bug-free. I'm just being honest here.
Yeah. True. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure. I have faith in CD Projekt Red. I have complete faith in them. So I truly believe that it will be fine. So yeah, it'll be my first PS5 game. So I'm throwing expectations out the window. I'm just looking forward, hoping it's on the same level as Odyssey is what I hope.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. What about you? Are you going to pick it up, or are you going to wait and see what
you want to do the Ubi talk? We should do the Ubi talk. So Ubisoft, in addition to always making good to great games, but seeming to struggle out of the gate with them, in various ways, has also had to fire a whole bunch of executives for sexual harassment and worse things. Before their big event a few months ago, as you know, the day before the big Valhalla release, they fired like 3 more guys just to clean house. This is happening in a lot of companies. It's not just Ubisoft. It doesn't look good. At least they're acknowledging it. The 2 big things are, of course, the sexual harassment, which is happening in Hollywood and everywhere. But with games, as you know, it's crunch, which is working people 100 to 120 hours a week without compensating them. They're not required to do it, but there's so much social pressure in terms of the corporate culture. And let's be honest, dude, even people that we love, like the people at Naughty Dog and so forth, and CD Projekt Red have admitted that they've been guilty of this. And part of the reason Cyberpunk keeps getting pushed back is because CD Projekt Red was like, you know what? We don't want to have to deal with crunch anymore. You guys can wait a little bit longer. This game's going to be great, but we're not going to be slave drivers. You know what I mean, with our company, and that's the right way to do it. And even Last of Us was a little delayed for similar reasons. Neil Druckmann is known as a slave driver at Naughty Dog, but they're gonna, let's be honest. Part of the reason they had to start Uncharted 4 from scratch was as a result of the slave driving. You know what I mean, and not getting it done. So Ubisoft has had some problems there. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is the most disappointing game since I started playing video games again, because I love Wildlands. It's a totally flawed game in which the story makes no difference. You're just killing drug dealers, but it's beautiful. The shooting mechanics are spectacular. It combines third-person movement, first-person shooting, which I don't know why more games don't do it. It's awesome. The shooting mechanics are great. They modeled a huge chunk of Bolivia like to a T. I mean, you can see the original topographic map and everything. And, people, of course, like all those games, like, oh, it's political, it's, pro-U.S., blah, blah, blah. It is sort of a little bit, but it actually portrays the situation with the drug dealers and the government pretty accurately. And it turns out that your handler is, like, kind of pretty corrupt. And that's sort of the point. And that was supposed to lead into Breakpoint with the John Bernthal character, who was a good guy who turned against the U.S. because of the corruption of the CIA and so forth. It's such a horrible game. It plays terribly. It looks terrible. It takes nothing of the good parts of Ghost Recon Wildlands. It's absolute disaster. My theory on this, dude, is they are putting so much into Far Cry games and so much into Assassin's Creed games. And The Division 2, which, by the way, was one of the cleanest games, multiplayer or not, at launch of all time. There's been almost no major bug problems, even though it's a multiplayer game. Division 2 is super clean. So between all of those properties, I just don't think they're focusing on Ghost Recon. They shouldn't have even done it. They should have stayed with the Division 2. I'm not a Far Cry guy. I've played some Primal with your recommendation. I think it's really cool. I have to get back into that. But yeah, I mean, Odyssey, for me, it was just the world and Cassandra and everything around her just totally grabbed me. And I'm going to keep an open mind about Valhalla. But dude, even Cyberpunk, I love CD Projekt Red from The Witcher 3, which I have something to say in a second. But like, I'm not the guy to pre-order. The only game I've ever pre-ordered was Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars, because it's Star Wars, but I knew it was good from insiders and people I know. I was just like, I knew this game was going to be good. I knew I was going to buy it. But that was literally it. I never pre-order any game, and games are usually buggy on launch. So if Valhalla's awesome, hell yeah. I really like Origins. I love the fuck out of Odyssey, and as long as I can play my female character in Valhalla, sure, you know. But do you mind if we talk Cyberpunk really quickly? Which is when we broached this 2 years ago, you and I were like, we're excited about this game. We kind of wish they were doing Witcher 4 instead or at the same time.
We sure were.
But that was also, dude, if you can believe it, 2 years ago, not only had I not played The Witcher 3, I had not read The Witcher books. So within 6 months of that podcast with you, I played The Witcher 3 all the way through, 150 hours, read all the Witcher books numerous times, and made my prediction that if Netflix, they had just gotten Henry Cavill, I love the production team, and that's when I made my prediction. I said, if Netflix does this series right, it's going to blow people away and going to be one of the biggest shows in the world. It's happened even way faster than I thought. And let's be honest, people wanted to replace Game of Thrones and kind of wanted to forget about Game of Thrones, you know what I mean? And this does things better than Game of Thrones does in some ways, but also does some stuff that Game of Thrones does that people like. Now they're doing multiple shows. We got the anime show, we got the prequel show, we got various games, blah, 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 blah. I guess what I'm saying, man, is I'm not worried about a Witcher 4, 5, and 6. It's going to happen at some point because everyone's on this. Like, you don't see this that often where the author, the TV production team, and the video game team seem to, at this point, after hammering out a few issues, seem to all be on the same page about this property. And that is, and I mean this as a compliment, dangerous to other companies because that property was already huge. But, like, now you got the people reading the books, playing the games, watching the show, listening to the audiobooks, which are spectacular. This property, there's no limit because there's much better material and more of it than Game of Thrones, in my opinion, where the books aren't that good. Game of Thrones was all about the HBO show. This is already going in so many directions. Just your general thoughts about The Witcher. In the last 2 years, because you had played it and loved it and couldn't believe I hadn't played it, and now looking back, I can't believe I hadn't played it. It was shortly thereafter that I did, and then got obsessed with the books and the audio books. Just open forum about The Witcher games or otherwise.
Just that it's definitely become like, this massive pop culture thing, like as you said, movies, books, audiobooks, games, TV. Sorry, I said movies. I'm sure movies are being planned and coming. I'm sure they are. And there's so many places to go. Like, it's not all just about Geralt, even though it is. There's so many places they can go.
Do not tell the Yennifers that. Do not tell the Yennifers that. They do not want to hear that.
I'm just saying there's so many places that they can go with this. It's just, we're just kind of scratching the surface. So I'm very excited I'm loving the hype. I got the whole set of books for my birthday, so I'm very, very, very excited.
And it's not. When you read the books, that's the thing, dude. It's ultimately not about Geralt or Yennefer. It's about Ciri, which is why I call it the Ciri saga. I mean, it's ultimately about Ciri and Geralt and Yennefer revolving around Ciri. I thought it was brilliant making Yennefer the sort of lead of the first season because that's not the case in those books whatsoever. Really, Dandelion and Geralt are the only ones that are in almost all the stories from The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. But they had to get people on board with Yennefer, and she's become already like more of a cult classic than Khaleesi or some of the Game of Thrones characters, like instantaneously. And they haven't even unleashed Freya Allan as Ciri yet. People will not believe, and they haven't read the books, how different she is from the seeming helpless Disney princess. Guys, did you get that elder blood magic going? You just wait. Just wait. So I'm excited for you to read the books and be on the Bizzle book club about that. But yeah, sorry. Keep going. Yeah.
No, that was it.
But
really.
You're happy. I mean, you haven't consumed as much as often as I have. You did before I did.
Yeah.
You saw it, but you must be thrilled, even though you're not as much of I don't think, a fantasy junkie as me. Like, fantasy for me is like comic books for you. I think if you want to compare time going back to childhood and so forth.
Yeah, I'm definitely more fantasy. Like Lord of the Rings was my childhood. Not the plot.
Right.
But Lord of the Rings was my childhood. It's the first like adult book that my pop forced me to read. The trilogy and The Hobbit, and really kind of got me into that world. And yeah, I could talk about that for days, but let's not.
Well, sure, but I guess what I'm saying, really quickly though, what I was saying was, I read the X-Men growing up. I know a lot about the X-Men. I still read the X-Men. I see the Marvel movies. I like some of them. I see the DC movies. But like, to quote Simi, my bottom bitch when it comes to genre is fantasy as a genre. And that's why I'm switching to more fantasy sci-fi coverage on the Bizzle Cast, because I'm just sick of talking about Star Wars, DC, and Marvel, which honestly have never been the biggest part of my life. And now that there's been a rebirth with The Witcher, and then the sci-fi side, The Expanse, and there's all sorts of interesting fantasy series on Prime and Netflix. I mean, fantasy is like experiencing a huge rebirth. I could not be more excited because, dude, with all the magic and stuff, there's certain stories you can tell in fantasy. You know, like The Witcher talks about genocide and ethnic cleansing, in ways that people can digest that you wouldn't want to in like a realism modern fiction book, right? You can talk about some of those issues.
Yeah,
what were you going to say? You were about to do a transition a second ago to something. Lord of the Rings, childhood fantasy. You were about to transition. You said you grew up with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so it's kind of like my first foray into the whole thing. So.
Oh, and by the way, I think that feeds into Odyssey being awesome too. Because even though it's based on Greek history, when you add all the Greek mythology with the giant beasts and the cyclopses and everything,
and
it feels like it feels like the Iliad. It feels like the Odyssey. Like they towed. Like there's one scene in Origins where you fight a giant snake, you know, and it's like really on the nose. It's like, oh, we're in Egypt with the asp. It's a giant snake. Doesn't really have to do with the mythology. Here they take everything good in the Iliad and the Odyssey and make it come to life. When you fight a giant cyclops level 40, you're like, oh my god, I'm about to get my ass beat.
Even like last night I did the Sphinx, where the Sphinx comes to life and you have to solve the puzzle.
So there's 3 endings to the game essentially. I don't want to comment on that because there's some spoilery stuff. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Okay. I just want to point out, you were talking about earlier, there's the family story, there is the secret society that's going to take over the world story, and then there's the Atlantean story. I have beaten the first 2, and I've gotten to the Atlantean, but I went back on my save, because for the Atlantean, there's some the present day stuff, and I was not nearly ready to stop playing. And so I actually have done everything up to the final Atlantean, 3rd and final story at level 62, which won't be a problem, but I want to explore this world and keep playing. And that was another thing we talked about in the old podcast, dude, was open world games, which is there's certain games that are just meditative to run around, whether it's Horizon, or Odyssey. Now, The Witcher, I don't think is one of those games. I think The Witcher survives because there's so much good story, and there's so much good story everywhere. But running around monster to monster, murdering monsters, it's not the same as running through nature with Cassandra and Aloy, for example, which isn't, I mean, The Witcher's worse. It's just a different experience. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree or if you have more games. Oh, Breath of the Wild is the perfect example. You can go hours in Breath of the Wild without literally any combat, right? It's called Breath of the Wild. And that's part of the reason people love that game. That might be a transition, but I'm going to let you talk about that topic if you have any. Otherwise, I have a list of games to run through and do quick thoughts on, and then we'll do the Suicide Squad and lead out. But the open world thing, any other? This is the perfect time. Top 5 games of this generation for you. I was going to say PS4 exclusives, but fuck it. Top 5 console games for you of this generation.
They probably are.
Yeah, they probably are.
To be fair, they probably are PS4 exclusives.
Not Odyssey?
Sorry, it just cut out there. So
not Odyssey then? Not Odyssey?
I don't know if I would, just because there's so many on PlayStation that I just like more. Sorry.
I believe your top 5 were, if I'm remembering, Uncharted 4, God of War, Horizon, maybe Spider-Man, and Days Gone. Were those the 5?
Last of Us 2 would definitely be in there. And I would probably also put Ghost of Tsushima in there. I played Spider-Man through once, and you know what? I tried to play it again, and I went,
I was
not
never
that I didn't like it, but I'm like, I might come back one day when the inevitable Spider-Man PS5 remastered complete edition comes out. You know it's happening.
Oh, of course.
So I'll probably jump back into it then, and if they update the graphics like they do with Miles Morales, count me in. But yeah, I wouldn't put it in my top 5. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, it's clearly the biggest, most ambitious, and mostly well-executed game that Marvel's done, which is saying almost nothing. I mean, even the Lego games, everyone agrees the DC ones are better than the Marvel ones. I'm not sure what it is, because Marvel, money-wise, is winning everywhere else. Yeah, go ahead.
I think with the Lego games, and I've been with Lego since day dot.
Preach.
I think because DC, like Lego Batman was one of the first Lego games. So it's grown with the gameplay, the characters, the DC character world has grown with the Lego games as they've evolved and changed. So the audience has grown with it. Whereas anytime they've done a Marvel game, so the Lego Marvel Avengers, which is terrible, Lego Marvel Superheroes 1 and 2, they've all tried to do something wildly different from the other Lego games, gameplay wise, that's annoying and irritating. Whereas the other ones, you know what you're getting in for, and they just change a couple of things and improve a couple of mechanics. And you're like, okay, this is a good time. Whereas specifically Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 just changed everything too much, and everyone was like, no. I don't even want to play through the story. That's how much I don't care about it.
Speaking of open world, guys, just a quick look at Alistair playing some Ghost of Tsushima here, which is, I think, very fitting as the final PlayStation game. I mean, the biggest praise and the biggest criticism of this game is it's another great PlayStation open world action RPG. To which I say, great, keep them coming. Because third person, as you know, 95% of the games I like to play, third person action RPG open world games, whether it's Batman or Ghost of Tsushima, these are my type of games. I don't know if I'm going to get into this one as much as the other ones. I need to give it more time. It's certainly beautiful. Would you agree, though, that this is a fitting end, even more than The Last of Us in some ways, from a symbolic way?
Yeah, definitely. And this is the last... So this is the last game that I'm playing on PS4. I'm not playing anything new on PS4. This is it for me. This is the last one. So it was a fitting end because Infamous Second Son was one of the first games that I played on PS4, and they're both from the same this bookend, sweet end, beginning and end. So for me, this, especially coming out of The Last of Us 2, this was therapy because I was so shook after The Last of Us 2, and this is just such a journey, and it's so beautiful, and it's a joy to play. It was just like a beautiful goodbye to one of my favorite consoles of all time. And PlayStation 4 will be the first console that I'm not selling. I will keep my PS4
me too.
Pro.
Yep, I'm keeping it for this, God of War, Horizon. Selling. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I would disagree with people who say this is clearly the most beautiful game. It's very beautiful, and there are some very Japanese artistic shots that are gorgeous. But in terms of the environment, I still think Horizon and God of War can go toe-to-toe with this game. That's just me personally. I could be way off. Maybe have to go back to those games. I think all three of those games look spectacular.
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying this one was, just a great way to close it off.
What was I going to ask you about that? I totally agree. Really quickly about Horizon, kind of surprised me it came to PlayStation, and then didn't surprise me that they had bugs. And then also didn't surprise me that they fixed the bugs relatively quickly. And it also didn't surprise me that they're selling a shit ton of copies at Epic and Steam. Duh, it's an amazing game. Yeah. Everyone wants to play it. But I said, of all the PlayStation games, why port this one? It looks so good on the PlayStation 4. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not against it, but like for example, Death Stranding was always made with a PC port in mind. Horizon was not. It didn't really make sense to me. You know what I mean? It still looks so good on the PlayStation. It's like Ghost of Tsushima. Are they going to port this eventually? Probably. They certainly don't need to. It plays and looks great. You know, the argument is a frame rate thing. You know, competitive gamers like 60 frames per second, but if it's not a shooter, if it's this kind of game, I prefer 30 or 40 frames per second because it's more cinematic. Alistair, you know this. Yeah. There's a reason movies are 24 frames per second and have always been 24 frames per second. It looks like a movie. It looks cinematic. When it's 60 frames per second, it's too smooth. I sometimes turn it down. Like, I turn Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Yeah.
Remember when they tried that with The Hobbit and it was terrible?
Can you speak up a little bit? Your volume went down.
Oh, sorry. I does everyone remember when they tried to speed up the frame rate
Yeah.
in the Hobbit movies and they looked terrible? Yeah.
Yeah, and they combined it with an early version of 4K too, so it was too fast and too sharp. It looked absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so couple quick hits about games that I know you love, and then we'll move on to the final section here. We'll watch the Suicide Squad trailer. Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. You love these games. Everyone loves these games. I can't get into any of them. I understand why people love the games. I support the loving and playing of these games. It's just not my thing. Stardew I can get into a little bit. Animal Crossing is just way too weird and bland for me. Stardew has some cool stuff going on. Give me the why Animal Crossing is great, but why Stardew's great, and you play both.
I think Animal Crossing is interesting. It was always going to be popular, but I think Animal Crossing released at the very start of the COVID craziness and lockdown. So for me, Animal Crossing, all my friends at the time were running out to buy a Switch to play Animal Crossing. So while we were sitting at home, we could visit each other's islands and have something fun to do and interact with each other through this medium. And I really truly believe like it was always going to be a popular game, but this made it a uber popular game. And it, even if you log on now, you'll see there's a lot less people playing because that kind of, you know, interacting with friends fad has kind of passed. Stardew Valley has been a part of my life for 3-4 years. I have it on every single piece of technology that I own. So I have it on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, my phone, my tablet, and PC. And I have a different farm on every one. And it's just one of those games that I don't feel like I have to play every day. I don't have to, you know, keep up with it. I can just go, hey, I've got 10 minutes. Let's see what my farm's up to. Or, hey, I'm bored. I want to play this for 4 hours. And it's just that sense of...
Totally.
It just helps me relax. There was a game on PlayStation 3 called Flower. I don't know if you remember it.
I do not.
Done by that game company who did Journey.
Mm-hmm.
It was their game before that, and basically the whole game is, and it's going to sound weird, is you are literally a petal of a flower, and you fly, you like float along in the breeze, in the wind, and you collect other petals and go through fields, and there's a whole lot more to it. But it had a killer soundtrack, and I was going through a really, really hard time in my life, and this game helped me relax and de-stress and come back to a place of normal every day. And Stardew Valley is the new version of that for me, I guess. And the good news is now we've evolved a lot since PlayStation 3, and I can literally have this game at my fingertips anytime that I need it. So I call it Stardew Therapy.
Oh yeah, the therapeutic aspect of both games cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's my feelings on those two.
But
I got it on Steam on PC for the mods.
Yep. What do you make of the Switch situation? I got the Switch because of COVID. A lot of people did. They sold a ton of units because of the situation. It seems they're actually maybe perhaps speeding up the new unit to be... Here's me playing Assassin's Creed with a trident, which I never use, but it's hilarious. Which they, they said that wasn't going to happen in 2021. We kind of thought maybe they would do in 2021. Nintendo always in the, off years. It doesn't release against Xbox and PlayStation. But this is a whole different thing. I thought the Switch was kind of gimmicky, but I also thought the Wii was gimmicky, and that sold a ton of units, and the Switch is doing great. And the fact that I bought a Switch Lite and have no interest in plugging it in and am fine just playing it on portable, I wish the screen was bigger, and it's going to get better, but I think ultimately they thrive on portable units, and being able to plug it in is cool, but they've sold 1 billion plus units between all the DSs, Game Boys, and 3DSs over the years. Nintendo just knows how to do portable gaming, and I think they should keep going with that. Your thoughts about the state of the Switch right now?
I think we definitely need a new model. I definitely want, a larger screen, a better battery. I want Bluetooth connectivity so I can connect my, good, expensive Sony headphones to it wirelessly. And I would love an upgraded graphics card so I can play things like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, level kind of games on the system. The fact that The Witcher 3 runs on the Switch still blows my mind.
Yeah.
That it can run the game and all the DLC. Like, it doesn't look as beautiful as it does on PC and consoles, but it still looks great.
It looks way better on PCs, but the jump between Switch and consoles is not as much as you would think. But the jump the jump to a nice PC is from a gameplay. I mean, once I did Witcher 3 with my second playthrough on my PC with my Xbox controller, it was way better from a gameplay standpoint. But as I've pointed out to friends who I talked to who are just discovering it on Switch, because the combat is specifically done in a very small area, like with Aloy, you're on a horse running miles around these giant, robot creatures. It wouldn't work as well.
Yeah.
Geralt, it's almost like a chessboard, right? It's not that big of a field of battle, and they all converge on you anyways, right? And so you don't actually need a big screen in order for the combat to work. So I always thought that would work, if that makes sense. More so than games with sort of expansive combat areas.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see what happens with that. It'll be an interesting time. But yeah, I really hope they do give us another Switch next year. Please.
And by the way, now the waiting for Witcher 4, and that is my horse, by the way, guys. I have a Pegasus with purple wings. There's boom. Now the waiting for Witcher 4 is great, dude, because as we know, all the Witcher games are ahead in time period than anything that's been done before. But now they're going to be jumping past, present, and future. But on top of that, we're going to be learning so much more about the universe at large, but also Ciri and everything around the Ciri story, the conjunction of the spheres going all the way back, the history of the Witchers, and so forth. So now getting multiple seasons of Netflix, of which now the writer Andrzej Sapkowski is going to be involved, which was not originally part of the plan. He just wanted them to do something cool, and now they sucked him in because Lauren Hissrich, my girl, the producer, just sucked him in with her passion and charisma, and now they got him, working on the conjunction of the spheres, which is new lore, a fantasy. Like, you can say this happened on Game of Thrones, but that was just finishing an already done story. This is a totally new section of time done by the actual author. It's a huge, huge, huge treat that we get this. And so no reason for CD Projekt Red to rush it. And honestly, whether Cyberpunk is a B+ or an A+, it's not going to make any difference for future Witcher games. The Witcher games are going to be great no matter what, because the storytelling's great. I just hope the Cyberpunk games aren't just Deus Ex meets Ghost in the Shell meets Blade Runner, because I love those properties, but I want something else. I don't love that it's called Cyberpunk, and the fact that they're using it, it's like calling your fantasy game Fantasy 101 or something. We'll see. A little bit of pressure. Have you heard anything out of that camp, or it's just pushing it back?
No, just pushing it back, yeah.
Okay, a couple quick ones. So you have not played Fire Emblem, which I've spent 100 hours on.
No, I have not, no.
It's amazing. I mean, I don't know if you played the other Fire Emblem games, but like everything great about the strategy part of Fire Emblem, you get, but man, does the social simulator part with the Japanese, very Japanese genre, the social simulator back at the castle where you're forming relationships, not romanticness always, but like just in general, relationships is done so well. It's great storytelling. It's 2D artwork that looks absolutely gorgeous. They make the strategy even way more fun and dimensional without overcomplicating it with numbers. I can't speak highly enough. It was robbed not getting a Game of the Year nomination, honestly. In terms of how many genres it brings in, RPG, strategy, social simulator, it really should have gotten a nod. I know you haven't played it. Have you heard anything about it? Is it something that interests you? Because it's always been one of my favorite genres, but it's normally one that I play in bed and just grind out like for fun. This was like a really engaging story experience.